Hi folks, we're Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of senior level judges all across the Western world that are being appointed who are not locally born citizens. Now, we're a nation of immigrants. Oh, the diversity, can't you feel the diversity? And what sort of intrigues me, I guess, is when we look at the judges, particularly the judges and the district attorneys and various operatives who were used to go chasing after Donald Trump when he was a candidate for office. How many of those people were naturalized citizens? That doesn't matter. You look at Tanya Chutkan in I think it was District of Columbia. It was, I'm going from memory here, but I think she's from Jamaica, was born in Jamaica, and became a naturalized US citizen. Now, her loyalties and so on are not to America or the American people. And if I've understood her public pronouncements and public declarations, she represents a very narrow ideological view and is prepared to subvert the justice system to pursue that ideological goal. The idea of an impartial judge who believes America comes first and its people come first and so on. This is someone who believes America is inherently evil, the white people are evil, and so on. Why would you why would you put someone like that into a... Now, that's also a judge that was used to harass Donald Trump, again, when he was a candidate for office. Now, if we look at Alvin Bragg, again, very much represents, as he perceives it, the downtrodden black diaspora. He's their representative. He's their man in the office. Letitia James is the same, a black woman. And while she's, both of them are very keen to enrich themselves at the expense of the white American taxpayer, take whatever they can, they very much represent one narrow section of society and believe their mission and goal is purely ideological, and that they are the resistance fighting back against, well, they don't really know what they're fighting back against, but something. It's a miasma of something that they're fighting against, but they don't know what. But the idea that the blacks are the downtrodden people, and whilst they hold senior office and well-paid jobs and so on, that seems to be a bit of a stretch. And we look at now, in the real world, somebody like Letitia James would be out cleaning toilets and some out of cell working in some takeout chicken shop or something like that. I mean, that's probably the extent of her real capability. And Alvin Bragg, I would argue, is in a similar thing. Fani Willis is definitely from Georgia, is definitely in that category. I'm sure she might get a job as a trainee in the takeout chicken shop, but given her attitude, I doubt she'd last very long. So when we look at the judges that are used, or the people in the legal fraternity, but particularly the judges and senior judges, we're not talking about some local little court that's hearing disputes over $100 or something. We're not talking about that, some petty sessions thing. We're talking senior level judges like Tanya Chutkan and so on. Now, when we look at the judges that were blocking or are blocking, continue to block the district court judges, which again, is quite a well-paid job for life. So now. These judges that are blocking Trump, again, they all come from some activist class position. Either they're naturalized citizens that believe they're really representing their own country, where they were born, or representing the interests and social structures, if you like, of the country they're from. Again, coming back to Tanya Chutkan. And they have really utter contempt for legal standards, procedures, rules of evidence, due legal process. They're there to tilt the scales in favour of an ideological outcome, not to look at the evidence and rule upon it, which I would argue, Tanya Chutkin's a classic example of that. Now, once we go to the next stage, then we see, for example, like Boasberg and various judges that believe that their first loyalty is to their Jewishness, or to Israel, or to the Jewish diaspora. That's their first. Like Ben Shapiro, you ask, he's asked, well, how do you see this? Well, I'm Jewish first, American second, and if you look at Ben Shapiro's approach and look at world affairs, it's very much in my view, very much one-sided towards what favours the Jewish diaspora, and if it's against the interests of America, well, so be it. Now, also, like Boasberg and these sort of guys, they're very prominent and they're very overrepresented in the cases that are brought to them to try and disrupt and hold up and interfere with and undermine the policies of the Trump administration. That's no accident. Now, we go sort of one step beyond that, and we include things like gay, lesbian judges, things like that. And then the final tier is just political hack activists, guys like Engeron, or the New York judges that we use to go and harass and pursue Trump on these bullshit charges. Again, you're looking at a network of people here where the judge's daughter works for a well-paid job at an NGO, and the judge's wife or something like that, or sister, or other family also works for yet another NGO on a very cozy job. So the judge is in a position where if they don't rule as they're being told to by the globalist activist sort of cabal, that their wives, daughters, sisters, brothers, or whatever, are all going to lose their well-paid jobs. And these aren't people that could actually get jobs in the real world. They can only get political hack bullshit jobs, well paid though they may be. Those are the only jobs they get. So these people will be out of work. They'll be doing it tough unless the political machinery doesn't gift them cozy jobs. And so the judge is very tied up and very linked, and it's like a web. Now this is the case with the globalist influencers and globalist people in key positions all around the place. Their relatives and important friends and so on are all part of this cabal, and that once you're in it, not only is your own employment and continuity and so on, but also the employment of your wider family are all tied up in the globalist machinery. So you don't do as you're told. The consequences are far-reaching and broad, and so it's almost incumbent on them, even if they personally maybe wouldn't make a decision in that direction. They know. Also, there are social things. There are people that get invited. You get invited to the very best cocktail parties around the place. You're at you're in the society pages as an A-list party goer. But if you don't toe the line and deliver the globalist cabal pretty much controls the A-list party sort of listing. So if you don't do as you're told and deliver the verdicts you're required to, then suddenly you're not on that A-list party. You're not going to parties. All your relatives and family and are out of a job and can't get a job, or can only get a job again in the takeout chicken shop, which is the natural level of their ability. And so on it goes. So there's a great deal of control and ideological control over these people. And if you look at every single one, I would argue, in my view, every single one of these judges that either pursued Trump or is trying to undermine the policies of his administration, then they're all in some way connected, as I've just outlined there, in some way connected to this activist diaspora. But coming back to the first point, should senior judges of any description, again, it doesn't matter if it's petty sessions, one neighbour's cut down the other neighbour's roses and they go to court. That I don't care who hears that. but certainly in the issue of senior judges, where they're going to be required to get involved in and review political and socio-political issues, they must only be American citizen, born in America, I would argue, and they must have impeccable credentials of impartiality. And if they don't make that standard, they can't even be nominated, I would argue, for judicial positions. And until we get to some sort of independent standard there, the problem is going to get worse, because the globalists are hell-bent on having the entire judiciary full of activist-type people that they control. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.